Hello, good morning. It's coming up to 6 a.m. on Monday the 14th of November and I'm on my local railway station, Oldfield Park in Bath, literally a 2-minute ride from my house. I'm just getting the early morning train down to Dorchester. I'm heading to Swanage Youth Hostel tonight on my bicycle, but before that I'm going to visit two places of interest. More about that when I get to Dorchester. Meantime, the 6:05 train is on time. Quick change at Westbury, then I'll speak to you at Dorchester. Heading south from Dorchester on the busy Weymouth Road. You can probably see there's a nice smooth cycle path to run alongside. As it goes up through a rock cutting, this cycle path will veer off in a sort of like an S-bend, go off to the left and then cross this road on the right as I head towards my first destination. More about that when there's a bit less traffic noise. I'm now on a slightly quieter road, traffic-wise quieter, not road noise quieter. That's the road I've just taken from Dorchester. There's a really nice silky smooth cycle path next to it, so it's safe. And you may see behind me, that's heading towards Weymouth. You see Weymouth in the haze distance. And that's what I'm heading to, the first of my destinations today. It's Dorset's one thankful village. In fact, it's a doubly thankful village, which means all the people who went off to serve in the First World War, men and women, and all the people who went off to serve in the Second World War as well, all came back safely alive. Langton Herring is heading over that way, not to be confused with red herring. If I show you a map of what I'm doing today, I've come from Dorchester, heading down south. This is the start of like a little circuit I'm going to do down that way. Then I'm going to sort of retrace and then head over eastwards that way to my second destination today, Morton Church, before I head down to Swanage Youth Hostel. This section is just so nice and quiet. Once I got away from that main road, you're on these really nice quiet farm lanes almost. There's not much around there apart from farms and the odd cottage up there. So on the right hand side you've got the hills looking back over towards Dorchester, and on the left it'd be the final slopes before the coast. And I would be running parallel to Chesil Beach, I think, that long pebbly beach where there's a sea inlet just behind it. I'm told they tested the bouncing bomb there before it's deployed in the Second World War. I've just crossed the Bridport main road and now I'm on these more up and downy roads. Each time you descend you go through a nice little bit of woodland. I'm on one of the rises at the moment approaching Langton Herring. It's a really good head-on shot of Chesil Beach, look. And there it is, I think that's Langton Herring. And there's the confirmation, the boundary sign, Doubly Thankful Langton Herring. Here we are in Langton Herring. Delightful little village. It's bigger than I thought it would be actually. It feels like in the middle of nowhere. I suppose that's because of the way I've come in, but I don't think it's that far from Weymouth or Bridport. Nice little twisty lanes through. Church of St. Peter. And right here is the village hall. So I'm now going to try and locate the centenary thankful village sign. I stopped over there and I must have looked a bit lost, and one of the locals said to me, "Are you lost?" And I said, "No, I'm just looking for the thankful village sign." He said, "Oh, it's right at the boundary as you leave the village." I think she's talking about like the road sign that I just saw on the way in. This is what I'm really looking for. This is what I'm going to be tracking down when I do my Thankful Village tour next June. Love the church. Oh gosh, look at that boat hanging down, look at my bar. There's a Doubly Thankful binder here. It gives a list of all the people that returned in World War I and in World War II. And then there's lots of local stories. Got stained glass window there. Just picked myself up a postcard and got leaflet. What a lovely little village. Stone bus shelter there, and the sign says village and coast guards only. That's all the hills leading over to the sea, and then that's the road down into the village. This actually is a dead end. By that T sign there, you just turn right there, and that's where the church is. But this is the back end of the pub, the Elm Tree, and it looks like it has caravan facilities here. Look at all the hookups, and a little field possibly for camping as well. This was part one of today's little trip, Langton Herring, Thankful Village. In fact, it's a Doubly Thankful Village. Now I'm heading back towards Dorchester. Before I get there, turning right and heading across, it's fairly flat, to Morton Church. Morton is somewhere I went back in the summer. I'll explain more when I get there. It's come on to rain. I've had to put my thinner of the two waterproofs on. This is gorgeous around here. So I've just come down off that high ground there. I'm making my way back to that sort of main Dorchester to Weymouth Road. I've crossed that main Dorchester to Weymouth Road now, pretty much on the outskirts of Dorchester again. It was a lot easier coming back. Had to put my white thin waterproof on because it got quite heavy up way. I just carried on riding, and of course as usual it eased off as I rode up that long hill back to cross over the road. Then I built up quite a bit of heat up there, so I needed it really more as a windbreak on the way down. This should be much easier now to Morton and Wareham. It's fairly flat, and then it just gets a little bit lumpy as I get towards Swanage. Just gone 20 past 1 and I'm well hungry actually, so this is my lunch stop. This is the very small hamlet of Morton. I'm so looking forward to coming back here, I really was. Says that road's closed, I'll try it because that's the way I'll be leaving. Where that white car is coming out of, that's a walled garden in there, and just past there is the village cemetery, which is where T.E. Lawrence is buried, better known as Lawrence of Arabia. You can see the signpost here. When I came back here in the summer, I just overshot the church because you actually have access to a private drive down there just to get to the church, and it's almost immediately right. But I carried on down there and got that wonderful ford where the people were bathing. Whether I'll have time for that today, I'm not sure, but I certainly want to go in the church straight after the grass triangle, and it's very easy to miss because it does say private drive, no parking, in smaller letters below. Access to St. Nicholas Church for pedestrians only. And here, after about 50 yards, a little turning up to St. Nicholas Church. I've been so looking forward to coming back here, I really have. I'm at St. Nicholas Church in Dorset. This is where the funeral of T.E. Lawrence was held, better known as Lawrence of Arabia. His grave is down the road a few hundred yards in the village cemetery, but this is St. Nicholas Church. This is so airy in here. It's got the echoes and that musty smell of a church, but it's so light, and the reason being is these etched windows. So the story is this church was hit by a bomb in 1940, possibly mistaken for a nearby airbase, but nobody's sure. Possibly just a plane dumping its bombs on the way back, having not found its target. Badly damaged, and all the stained glass windows were blown out, and they were replaced with clear ones in 1950. And apparently the parishioners and villagers just didn't like them at all, and so they commissioned an artist to engrave all these windows, and there's these wonderful etchings. To be honest, on a day like today, they look better from outside actually. And they were started in 1955, and the last one went in 1987, I believe. Wonderful place, perfect place for lunch. I'm going to sit outside and have my lunch. I just found a wonderful seat out in the churchyard under the tree where I sat before in my last visit. I was just sitting down to eat my lunch and I've got spots of rain and it's come on quite heavy now. So I've dived in the porch with my bike. I hope that's acceptable. It's 10 to 2 now and the hostel doesn't open till 5 at the earliest, and I don't particularly want to get there bang on 5. So I can really afford to sit this out. This is like the rain earlier on. It felt like it was in for the day and then it just suddenly stopped. So anyway, this is where I'm sitting having my lunch. Morton church porch. I'm making quite good progress on these fairly fast minor roads. They're not exactly lanes, but they're not too busy. Just looking over at Wareham Forest. Can you see that sort of white sandy track snaking up right over there? In the summer my route actually took me up onto the plateau, then it did a V, it came back on itself, and I was just following the Garmin and it did this wonderful off-road route, and then it took me up onto some high ground. At first it just looked like a farm track and then it's a big escarpment like that. It's the one that runs right along on the far side of Swanage over to Studland. And then just before I got to Studland you sort of drop down, take the final few miles on lanes crossing the Swanage Heritage Railway. A train just happened to go by as well into Swanage. I made sure I wasn't doing that today because I knew with the rain recently it'd be a bit of a mud bath up there. I'm now a few miles from my destination and I've just passed through Corfe Castle. You may see it in the gap through those hedges, this farmhouse there. Up on a big motte, the big ramparts of the old castle, quite haunting looking. There's the main road over there, you can just see it running along there. Last time I took the hills right up on the left of me, and then I dropped down onto this minor road, so I got a rough idea what's coming. It's rained on and off today, but you know, there's patches of blue sky. It's never been heavy, it's never been for very long. Looks like it's going to be an early darkness tonight. Look at those clouds, not sure what the time is. Just on the final hill into Swanage, and that's the downs that I came along last time I came into Swanage when I was bivvying, and I dropped back down onto this lane about a mile or so back that time, so I know what's coming this way. Look at amazing light though. It's a weird colour where the sun in the west is dipping down, but it's creating this really weird sort of colour. There's a bit of sea mist, a bit of a sheet of rain, some cloud. It's really eerie. And right in front of me, I mean, look at that. I've never seen a rainbow like that. You can almost see, look, where it starts and finishes. It's 4:30 and I've just dropped off that big ridge up there, down through the side streets, down to Swanage seafront. That's looking over to the escarpment that I was running alongside earlier on. I was looking along the seafront. It's lovely, like the pavilion, cinema, whatever it is. We saw a film in there once, me and Linda, when we were down there. That's all lit up sort of rainbowy. See if I can zoom in. And the hostel's right up that hill somewhere near that church. I did stop at a shop back there, little corner shop, and got myself some rolls and some chocolate, but I'm still looking for some beer. So I know there's a few like co-ops and budgeons along here, so I'll home in on one of those. It's 25 minutes until the hostel opens anyway, so I've got bags of time. Swanage seafront on a wet November afternoon, slightly different from when I came here back in the summer. Spent hours down on the beach before I went on to that headland over there to do my bivvy. This is actually really nice. I love the route I came in from Corfe. about 5 to 5. The hostel will be open in a few minutes. Looking back down there and beyond the lights, it's all the countryside that I came in from Corfe. Then you can cut through a few alleys to get up here. Cuts off a big, sort of like an S-bend on the road. You literally just walk straight up. It's steeper, but it's quicker. And here we are at the hostel. Here's my dormitory, room number 10, up on the top floor. Oh gosh, look, plugs, charging points, lights on the top of the bunk beds. Not on the bottom, yeah, on the bottom, look, gosh. My HA in the 21st century. First things first, ring my darling wife to let her know I got here alright. Get changed, walk and have a shower, then go down and start thinking about some food. Actually, I'm quite hungry. When I came down, there was a big youth group in the restaurant having their cooked meals. They were being served pizzas, which actually smelt lovely, cheesy and salty. This is the members' kitchen and dining area. Got it all to myself at the moment. Just cooking rice, gonna stir in some chili con carne and some bread and butter. I've just come across the common room, actually the lounge. Gosh, look at this, all wood panelled. It's amazing etchings on the ceilings, the mock chandeliers. It's really got a lot of character, this. Very cosy. This is exactly the opposite to Brecon Beacon's Youth Hostel a couple of weeks ago. That members' cooking area and the eating area was quite vibrant. There was a lot of people talking, a lot of conversations going on. I had a couple of good conversations in there. I never went in the common room there, even though there was a wood burner in there, just because the eating area was just so, that's where it's happening. I've just picked up one of the many leaflets actually lying around, and it gives you quite a good idea of the history and the transformation of Swanage from a stone port to a seaside resort. So briefly, it says the stone trade was once the main industry of Swanage. Purbeck's stone was shipped to London in vast quantities from the 18th century and used mostly for street paving and harbour defences. And then it goes on to say, Dorset MP William Morton Pitt had seen how King George III's enjoyment of the sea bathing popularised the nearby town of Weymouth, and was convinced that Swanage could become a fashionable health resort and watering place. In the 1820s, he created the first major hotel in Swanage, the Manor House Hotel. Following a visit by Princess Victoria in 1833, they were permitted to rename it the Royal Victoria Hotel. The opening of the railway in 1885 saw the Victorians arriving in Swanage to enjoy the clean air and the new fashion of sea bathing, and it says it was known as one of the sunniest towns on the south coast. Swanage soon changed from a stone port to a flourishing seaside resort. It's coming up to 7 AM and I've been up in my youth hostel for about 20 minutes now, and the weather forecast looks quite bleak this morning. There's a weather warning out, and heavy rain forecast all day and strong winds 49, 50, 51. So clearly riding back to Dorchester is going to be a bit of a challenge today. The windows have been rattling all night and I heard heavy rain, although it doesn't actually look that heavy at the moment. Could be because we're sheltered by a lot of trees, but I'm going to go downstairs, have a bit of breakfast and try and be on the road sooner rather than later. Had the dormitory all to myself, which is nice. Downstairs in the common room last night talking to a guy from London. He'd just come down for a few days walking, using this as a base and just going out walking, using buses or just walking straight from the hostel until Thursday. So that was really nice, discussing lots of stuff. This big map at the hostel entrance is a good idea to give you the location. So there's Swanage Bay and there's Corfe Castle up there. That's where the Heritage Railway runs between those two. When I got to Corfe yesterday, I took that minor road along there underneath that big escarpment. That's where I saw the rainbows. So the sun was setting over that way and casting the orange light on there, and that's where that rainbow was absolutely amazing. and then I came down into the back of Swanage this way. This morning what I'm going to do, because of the rain, I think I've decided I'm just going to main road it up to Corfe Castle. Just get that done as quickly as possible, try and avoid rush hour, and then take this minor road. I've done this before, goes along underneath the Purbex, and then you have to do quite a steep climb across it. That's the only big hill, and then this straight run down towards Wareham. And when I get on the roads there, it's pretty much flat all the way back to Dorchester. That's the view looking down into town and the coast. You can just about make out the sea. It's 8:30, I'm just leaving the hostel. That gives me 5 hours to get to Dorchester, so plenty of time just to sit out heavy downpours. At the moment it just looks like drizzle with interspersed bursts of heavy rain. It's the wind that's making it feel stronger actually. Looking back over towards the coast, over towards Studland, you may not see it, it's quite a bright screen, but there's the waves crashing into the cliff, so you can tell it's a bit tempestuous out there. Anyway, you can see I'm all kitted up. I've got longs on for the first time this autumn, and I've got my heavy duty Mac on, although I'm hot already to be honest, so we'll see how that goes. I've got a thin one and a thick one, but I think it will be the thick one today. Right, let's head off. Been a fantastic night's hosteling. Let's get back to Dorchester. I've changed my mind about my route up to Corfe Castle. It's not particularly heavy rain, but you get bursts of it, and also the visibility is so bad. I'm wearing glasses, so they're misted up. The traffic, the visibility ain't good like this. So I'm going to make the elevation and the terrain harder. I'm going to take this minor road, which will climb back up on that ridge I was on yesterday, and that'll take me hopefully safely on minor roads down to Corfe. This morning I'm cycling about 30 miles from Swanage Youth Hostel back to Dorchester West, and I was just going to put my head down on the main road up to Corfe Castle before I get on some quieter roads and flatter roads. I took about a mile out of Swanage on that road on a cycle path right next to the main road, and it looked horrendous, really busy, lots of spray coming off the roads, visibility was bad. I'm wearing glasses, so my vision's limited. I just turned onto this minor road. It's quite undulating, it runs along the foot of that escarpment there. That's the escarpment that will go along and form the left hand side of Swanage Bay. On the other side of Studland. I'm getting a lot of texture from the trees here actually. It's nowhere near as exposed as I thought it would be. You get a big gush, you may have just heard it then. So, I mean, the trade-off is the only thing I'm slightly worried about is any branches coming down, as some people call the widow makers. Anyway, I'm making quite good progress towards Corfe. Then I'll get on some minor roads there, cross the Purbeck Hills, down to the outskirts of Wareham, then turn left and it's mostly flat, about 15 miles from there back to Dorchester. This should be a good test for my windsock on my external microphone. It's aimed to baffle the wind noise. I passed through Corfe Castle. I was riding along that low ground there. That's the coastal cliffs over there, and I'm now crossing the Purbecks. After this it should be downhill and a lot flatter. I think the GPS track gives you the idea of what I'm doing. That V will be the summit, just round there, then I'll drop down. When I say GPS, be more pedantic than GPS plus Galileo. God, it's pretty blusty around here. I'm going to have to get down on low ground pretty quick. I'm now at Wall, in fact right beyond the railway station in this petrol forecourt. Just stopped to get myself some bit of energy, some chocolate, and a fizzy drink. So when I dropped off the Purbeck Hills, you instantly noticed you were protected from the wind, but what it did seem to do is trap the rain. Had about 7 or 8 miles of fairly strong heavy rain. Cut the trees down in places as well actually. Just crossing this main road, I'll be heading back towards Morton. I'm now making good progress towards Dorchester. My Garmin is estimating 56 minutes to Dorchester West, my destination, and my train leaves in 2.5 hours, so I've got time on my hands. I did get drenched after I dropped down off the hills, but as you may see, it's turned out quite nice now. This is the very boundary of the village of Morton. That's the church down to the right hand side where the etched windows are, and there's a walled garden there, Victorian walled garden with a cafe. That's where that guy just walked in. But this is the village cemetery. Right down the far end you may see a big wooden cross. That's the site of the grave of T.E. Lawrence of Arabia. I'm not going to go in and take photographs, I'm just not comfortable with doing that, but I am going to go in and pay respect. I read somewhere that his mother wanted him to be recognised for his academic achievements because he was quite a gifted scholar rather than his military exploits, and when you go and see the grave that's very, very obvious. It's 12:30, I'm just coming into Dorchester. I've got about 50 minutes in hand, so I've got time to go into town to Greg's, get myself some food and drink for on the train home. That's one of the busy main roads in and out of Dorchester. That's bypassing this old road, and this is where Thomas Hardy built his home, Max Gate, after he became famous and wealthy. I mean, he was a trained architect after all before he became famous. It's well worth going in there. £8 and you get a guided tour for that. Really interesting, they're very well informed, quite passionate, answer any questions you got, and then you can wander around the grounds as long as you want afterwards. They told us during my last tour that he was a very private person, he valued his privacy, and he planted 2 rows or 2 layers of trees, 2,000 trees I think, just to stop the public looking over the walls, because he was a big celebrity at the time. And to give you an idea how famous he was, amongst the pallbearers at his funeral were the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition of the day. I mean, can you imagine that nowadays? I think not somehow. Anyway, I'm going to head into town. I've got here fairly unscathed actually, considering it was supposed to be so grim today. It was a bit rough the first few miles, but about 25 years ago when I was down in New Orleans, heard a great saying down there, and it went, if you don't like our weather, come back in half an hour. And I've sort of embraced that idea ever since, because it just shows, just no matter how bad it gets, it probably won't be the same in 30 minutes. Who knows, it might be worse, it might be better, but it's not going to be the same. And I've sort of adopted that idea to sort of get me through the times when it can be a little bit challenging and tough. Anyway, into town. It's raining again. And I love this section between Dorchester West and Yeovil, mostly single track. There's a pass in place at Made in Newton, but we're in a very steeply sided, bottom of a steeply sided valley, and obviously the water's been flowing down after all that rain overnight, and some of the streams and rivers look like they're flowing really fast. Seen a couple of floods as well. Approaching Bath, although my next stop is where I'm getting off Oldfield Park. I'm probably going to wind the film up here because there's rain forecast in Bath, and so when I get off the train it's a very quick dash back to my house, and hopefully without getting too wet. Hope you've enjoyed watching this film. The next one hopefully is going to be another hot tent camp. I did refer to it last week when I camped out near Bitton, that I was trialling a few things and I identified a few little issues, and I bought some stuff to try and rectify it, so I'll go into that on the next camp, and I'm hoping to revisit somewhere on the Frostway. Anyway, in the meantime, look out for each other everybody, take care, see you soon.